And that is where we're going to launch this week's Talking Points with a response to what he had to say. Right, Don Matcham, Guy Lavender. What did you make of that? What do you make of him?
I think he's great. I think he's obviously come into the sport new. He's bringing energy, ideas. Racing, obviously, second largest spectator sport in the country. I also think from a consumer's perspective, and I think what Guy touched on there, it's a great product. Like, it's a very simple thing for everyone can understand. Which number horse crossed the line first?
Yeah.
And if you compare that to what sports in crisis, compare it to rugby union, they lost 3 teams last year. Worcester, Wasps, and who was it, London Irish. That's a sport in crisis. We're not losing racecourses.
Yet.
Yet. But I do think there's a responsibility almost of those in racing who care about racing, certainly from a journalistic media perspective, to put positivity into the world about the sport. Because I do think if we focus on the negatives, keep talking about declining audiences, you know what? We might kill it.
Yeah.
And like, I think what's lacking certainly.
So you're saying we're shorting our stock, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to stop pumping out this negative rhetoric about the sport, because what I see, we sold 33% more tickets last year than we did previous years. More young people are coming racing than ever before. Our TikTok channel's grown to 30 million organic views a month. And the majority of that content is filmed at racecourses about racing, and the journey around racing.
Do you have anything to sort of relativise that to? As in, is that ahead of what you would expect something like that to be?
We started in 2019. Obviously, there was COVID in the middle of that period, which sort of hampered us quite a bit. But year-on-year growth in racing, and we are totally committed to the sport because for us, it's the easiest one to sell. There's a male-female appeal to coming racing. There's the fashion element, drinking, dancing, betting. Like, it's effectively an adult playground.
That's a great strap line. Though I suspect not one that some operatives at Great British Racing have been striving for a while. I want to open, but
focus on the fun.
Yeah,
fun is what people are coming for. And we're obsessed in the sport, I think, with trying to create racing purists. And we should. The more people we put in the top, the more people will become racing purists. But not everyone wants to be a racing purist. And the people going to a racecourse, I think they're the ones who are looking for a fun day out and an entertainment experience. If you want to be a racing purist, go to a dirty little bookies on the high street, because you can focus on your racing.
Or even a very clean, nicely appointed bookmakers with fresh tea and coffee.
But there's two ways of consuming the sport. And for me, the people who are creating all the negative sentiment around the sport are the ones who are like, we don't want people having fun here, let's quash that. Like, no, we need lots of people having fun because more people will come in.
The good news is that we've got so many, building blocks there to talk about all sorts of everything with you in a few moments' time, which we are going to do. For the moment, though, Neil, I want to talk about people going to Benidorm to watch the Cheltenham Festival. Why aren't they going to Cheltenham to watch the Cheltenham Festival?
Well, I don't know. You read these stories, and I don't know what you guys think when you see those stories. I mean, it kind of sounds like a sort of a fun thing to talk about, but it's kind of an indictment of Cheltenham, really, that people are feeling like that. I mean, this week we had the Kempton gallops on Monday, Constitution Hill. They're not the same as they used to be. I've heard that now people are going to Tenerife to watch that. No, I don't know. I did speak to a friend of mine about a week ago, and I said to him, "You're going to Cheltenham this year?" And this is a guy who's got, legs in various horses. He's owned outright loads of horses over the years. He's got a bunch of mates that are all in a similar boat. They're all pretty loaded and could easily afford to go and spend 500 or 600 quid on a hotel room for a night in Cheltenham town centre. And they've just said, we don't want to do that. We're feeling like they're bleeding us dry, and they're going to Tenerife to watch it. And between the 8 of them, that's thousands and thousands of pounds.
Coming back to
not
Dom's
going
point,
into the Cheltenham economy.
Coming back to your point, Dom, actually, why are they going to Benidorm or Tenerife to go and watch racing? Because they're going to have fun there and watch the racing.
But yeah, question to you, Neil. Our open question: is it an issue if they're still consuming the sport? And let's think about it. Why has there been enough investment into the customer experience? for in the last 100 years.
I think that's the point, because I think what people are saying when they say, well, you can go to Spain for the same money and watch it, you know, on a big screen in Marbella or in Benidorm or wherever, and it's warm and the beer's cheaper and whatever. That's what they're saying, that they're still spending the same money, but they're spending it in Spain rather than spending it in the Cotswolds.
Yeah.
And this is costing the economy of Cheltenham the finances of British racing. And I feel like racing should be asking itself, well, what are we doing wrong that people would rather go? Obviously, they can't change the weather in the UK, but surely the buzz, the Cheltenham roar, that should be enough to make you want to go there rather than go to Spain. But also, by the way, when you go to Benidorm, absolutely chocker with black market bookies offering you chances to do bets.
More of which in a moment.
Once those people are signed up to those black market bookies,
I quite want to go to Benidorm.
They're not coming back.
The good news is that you two have both provided me with so many more talking points. We've got plenty of time for Dom as well, which is good news. Talking of racecourse gallops.
Yes.
Right, so Constitution Hill, we heard from Simone, he's happy with it. Nicky Henderson's happy with Constitution Hill. Off we go.
I just wonder, should racecourses be bending over backwards to make it easy for trainers to bring their horses to a sort of... I mean, I don't know all the details. The one on Monday, I think
Tuesday, wasn't it?
Tuesday, was it? There was a kind of an antiques fair going on at Kemp.
Yeah, there always is.
I think if you wandered in from the antiques fair to watch the gallop, I think you were allowed to do that. But it wasn't kind of advertised to the public. I don't think... I asked someone who was there and they said there weren't more than half a dozen people that weren't media, press or related, you know, connections of the horses there. It's a bit behind closed doors. Dom,
have you ever thought of getting an Invades crowd into a racecourse gallop? That would be novel, wouldn't it?
That would be novel.
Should it be opened right up?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'll think about it. Maybe not a home run, not an easy... I prefer to do more on race day. I think it goes back to your original point, though. It's the best way to consume the sport is in person.
Yeah.
We went through that COVID period where, yes, you can watch racing on your phone, on the iPad, but you don't get the buzz, you don't get that feeling. And I think racing needs to get better at selling that feeling and being like, if you want that experience, the only place you're going to get it is sat in the stand, standing with... And what I love about racing, it's such a shared experience. You can go up to anyone on a racecourse and go, who do you bet on? Or who do you think is going to win the next one? It's such a nice talking point.
But also, like with this...
Can I just bring it back to Ben to ask him your view on racecourses? What Neil's basically saying is, should racecourses be bending over backwards to give horses an opportunity to do this when they could actually be taking up an engagement in a real, actual race? It's an old debate, but one that gets reheated every year or so.
I think it's two sides to the story. I think... when the likes of Constitution Hill go for gallop, it's all for press, media and thing. But then where a lot of people don't see things happening is a lot of the other tracks have gallop mornings and whatnot, and you've got babies going, you've got young horses never been on the track. I think that's where it's good for the sport.
Serves a useful
So,
and the new schooling races presumably are going to be very useful in that regard as well.
Yeah, so they've had 2 or 3 powder points, which they've started out, and apparently it's working really well, and the likes of young horses, even old horses, going to freshen up. So, yeah, that's a big bonus this year, which the Irish have done it for years and years. So it's nice to see that we're doing it as well now.
By the way, I don't want to be seen to be slagging off Nicky, because I think it's good that he told everyone he's doing this gallop and people know about it. I think you're right. Like sometimes, you know, you hear a trainer say, oh, yeah, we galloped him at Wincanton on Wednesday or something, and you're like, why did we not know about that? We probably only find out about it if it goes OK. Well, if it's a disaster, it's hidden away and nobody hears about it.
What we found out this morning is that if Nicky's walking into the yard now for third lot or whatever, that all the staff are looking at him and saying, here comes Daddy.
Is that the name of a horse?
Which, well, it should be now.
Here comes Daddy. Great name for a horse.
If Constitution Hill is taken on by Brighter Days Ahead in the Champion Hurdle, Ben, Brighter Days Ahead will be ridden now by Jack Kennedy, who has made no secret of his regard for her. To what extent will the presence of Jack Kennedy back on her, and indeed all the Gordon Elliott horses over the course of the festival, make a significant difference to his tally by the end of the week?
It definitely helps. Like, Jack's one of the best riders we've seen, you know, and I think if it wasn't for all his injuries and stuff, he'd be classed as the best, you know. So I think it's going to be a big plus on that side of things, him being back. In regards of Constitution Hill, I don't think that make any difference.
Do you not? Do you think it's just turn up, canter round, win again?
That sounds easy, doesn't it? But yes, he's just phenomenal.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I was just trying to infer from your body language what you were thinking.
I think he's definitely the best horse I've ever seen, and I think I don't think he'll be beat.
Constitution Hill. Yeah.
Now,
even I'm not really a racing fan, and I've heard of Constitution Hill. So that shows.
But can
I don't know much about horses. I don't know many horses, to be fair.
Can a headline horse, can a household name horse, can that horse capture your audience?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. We need stories, any part of the sport, that go outside it. And I think Constitution Hill is one of these, like, it always wins, right?
Yeah.
Always wins. But yeah, I'd say our audience aren't they wouldn't know the difference between a Grade 1 and a Grade 2, 3 race. They're not sort of shopping around like that. For them, it's about a day at the races. And just them being there, by osmosis, they're going to fall in love with it more. And that's the hope. And I think we don't really see it as, you know, our job is to get them there, give them a great day. It's slight, you know, maybe as we develop, it's more our job to help them develop a passion for the sport. But we almost need support from racing, governing bodies like GBR, Great British Racing, all those guys, to invest into our customers, to be like, how can we give them the best day possible so that they want to come back?
Yeah, and also it's important that they perceive the sport in the right way, something else I want to drill down into a little bit later on. And with that in mind, Neil, Shark Hanlon's back as of, what are we now? As of yesterday.
It's a cool name, isn't it? Shark. He's called Shark.
Yeah. There you are. You know he's a marketing man, right?
He's called Shark. Like, of course I want to bet on his horse.
You know he's a marketing man.
He sounds like a gangster.
Well, Neil, he's back. He's back, Shark.
Yeah,
because he had the back end of his suspension.
Yes.
Not suspended, but he had the back end of his
suspension. He lost 2 months off the suspension because of good behaviour or whatever.
Exactly that. Now, this has been debated, you know, what he did and what punishment he should have got. And
obviously, to an extent, it doesn't really.
Take this forward now. Why is this conversation relevant?
To an extent, it doesn't really matter whether he gets another 2 months or not. I mean, I'm sure he's delighted to be back and not having another 2 months. But the punishment is, you know, a heavy financial burden of having to go through the appeals process and the representing getting representation, all that kind of thing. He's lost quite a lot of owners over it. I'm sure it's been a huge penalty on him and his yard for what he probably thinks is a relatively kind of minor thing. A bit of tarpaulin blew off and he hadn't realised, and it was supposed to be covering up a dead horse that was being transported. But of course, the big question behind it is that horse racing is only allowed to exist within the public's imagination. You know, people, we can only continue as a sport. We have a social licence. People, the public at large have to believe that we're doing everything we can to make the life and welfare of the horses at the centre of the sport, and that we love and care for the animals. And any time that is not seen to be happening, there is a risk to that social licence. And, you know, we see the thing about greyhound racing in Wales recently. I think greyhound racing as a sport has possibly started to lose the battle against the social licence in a way that horse racing hasn't. You know, over the years, there have been lots of animal sports that have lost that licence and are no longer, you know, fox hunting, hare coursing, whatever. I think horse racing is a, you know, people say, oh, well, once they get rid of greyhound racing, horse racing will be next. I actually think there's quite a long gap between the two. I think horses are, you know, dogs are pets.
You're not going to use Matt Zarb-Cousin's line again,
They are different.
A horse is not a dog.
I don't know. I mean, we had Matt Zarb-Cousin on last week. Obviously, he doesn't believe in... I like greyhound racing, but I appreciate that a lot of people are against it. and it doesn't make you an idiot if you are against it. People are quite abusive. I don't know. What do you think, Ben? Do you think that...
Well, hang on. The one thing we haven't actually canvassed so far about that whole topic is the opinion of somebody Welsh about the Senate's proposed ban on the one remaining greyhound track. How's it gone down back
And is
home?
it dangerous for racing? Is it the first step towards...
I don't think it's got nothing to do with the horse racing. Like you said, there's a massive gap. Me growing up, I went to a few greyhound races, not many. I couldn't really have a say here or there if it should stay or not stay. I don't know enough about it all. But the thing I find hard is how can you ban it in Wales and a mile over the water, then you can race on it, you know. So I think if it's going to be banned, it should be banned, and if it's not going to be banned in one place, then it shouldn't be banned in Wales.
It almost sounds like you're not a champion of devolution.
Well, no, but I think like it's either a yes or no. You know, what
this
I mean?
is political, Nick.
Yeah, it's just yes or no, not in.
It's
not
the
in the
politics thing. It's not. I don't know.
It's people's opinion at the end of it, and there's not going to be a right or wrong answer in some people's minds.
What we do need to talk about is the latest results from a Racing Post betting survey, which canvassed 10,000 people. Were there any surprises in there, Neil?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, first of all, I'm surprised that 10,000 people replied. I would think people might be getting a bit tired of being asked what they think. I mean, 100,000 people said they didn't want affordability checks, and the industry and the Gambling Commission turned around and said, well, we'll trial affordability checks then. You know, I would have thought some people might have been saying, well, it's a waste of time telling these people what we think. They never listen to us. Punters never get listened to. But, yeah, there were things in it that I thought were interesting. I think there was what was the thing I read this morning? I think it was 24 to 30-year-olds. A majority said that they expected to spend more on betting in the next year, in the upcoming year, than they did in the last year. I thought that was quite interesting. The fact that people like betting more on jumps racing than they do on flat racing. Well, I thought that was pretty
come to Dom here, because there was the theory put forward last week, wasn't there, that Generation Z's attitude to betting was different to you know, Gen X and millennials. Is that necessarily the case? There was a sort of the received wisdom was that there was a more kind of censorious view of betting amongst your kind of target audience than there was amongst older people. Is that something that we're seeing
our customers definitely getting involved in the sport, betting on each race in small amounts, predominantly on the phones. We get a lot of bookmakers get quite disgruntled, being like, they only bet £2. Like, yeah, it's better than none, isn't it? It's like, it's such a... I think they're... but yeah, they're not wagering huge amounts of money because they've not got huge amounts of money. But it's that we like to see, because they then have an emotional investment in each race. Our fans get very excited when the horses come past, especially if they've got a bet on. And I think for everyone in the sport, even if you're not part of the Invades events, you're at the racecourse, there's more of a buzz. For the jockeys, going past the rail and loads of people screaming, cool, I feel like a rock star. Like, we're bringing back some glamour to the sport with everyone's, you know, fully participating in it.
So, the Invades audience is unlikely to be migrating to the black market just yet, Neil.
Yeah.
But that was the sort of key headline from the racing.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously that was a big part of it, was the huge number of people that said that they'd tried black market, particularly people that bet more than £1,000 on average. A high proportion of them said that they'd tried the black market and they were prepared to try the black market. And obviously, they're the people that fund racing via the levy. You know, £2 punters are not really what supports this sport. It's supported by the losses of large staking people, generally people that own racehorses that bet on horse racing in those levels. And those people just don't want to do the affordability checks. I forget, I should have the numbers on the top of my head. I think, was it 61% didn't want to send in their documentation on the affordability checks. You know, obviously, if those people migrate to the black market, we're not getting any levy, and you know, it's terrible for the future of the sport.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Cheltenham handicap weights, and particularly the handicap mark given to Kopek Demi. Now, it's not just him. He's never run in Britain or Ireland before, but has had the requisite number of runs in France, including a listed win in a hurdle race at Auteuil. He's been given a mark in the mid-130s, and it's almost as though those close to him, Willie Mullins and Ruby Walsh and David Casey and everybody else, is almost apologising in advance for the fact this horse is going to win by half the track, presumably in the Martin Piper, whichever race he shows up in. Dom's gone to punt him now. He's on. How much he'll get on, I'm not quite sure. Can we handicap horses, Ben, on French form if this is the case?
It's very hard. Like Ben Paulin had one come over from France and had a mark of 124, and then he won at Kempton in the Grade 2 the other day. So it's on that thing. Then this
is Mambo number 5, isn't it?
So on that form, he's better than 124 or whatever he was rated when he came over. So I think it's very hard to put a number on it, and I don't really know how you get around it.
The one thing that really struck me was the fact that, you know, they made you run X many times to run in a hurdle, makes you run X many times to get in a chase. You know, how do we stop Willie Mullins winning everything? Well, we're going to make them run 5 times over hurdle. He just goes and gets a horse in France who's run 5 times in France.
Yeah, that's true.
He'll find a way, won't he? Whichever way.
I mean, I thought that change, the 5 times thing, I thought that was a good change, really. I mean, I think that's worked out quite well. And it was well thought out in terms of, you know, making Cheltenham less of the be-all and end-all.
But you can bet your bottom dollar, though, Neil, that if this horse goes and wins by 15 lengths...
Yeah, we'll have to redraw up the rules.
If it goes and wins hard-held and does a Galopin des Champs or a Stake Man, they'll go, right, how can we rewrite these rules again?
Well, I think, you know, I don't know. For me, from a punting point of view, you know, these kind of horses are unattractive to me. It's not the sort of thing I get involved in. So if he wins a race, I'll be slightly feeling short-changed, really.
All right, well, there'll be more Neil, more Ben, more Dom, more dogs in a few moments. But that was this week's Talking Points.